Howdy, I'm Repton, and this is Repton Does. Today, we're diving into creating a creative instance in Satisfactory, a perfect sandbox to plan and build blueprints. If you're new to the idea, Creative Instance is a no-pressure way to test ideas, optimize factory designs, and prepare your blueprints for your survival world. So let's get to it. So first thing, we're going to start by creating a new game for a Creative Instance. So we'll want to select um, a starting area. We'll want to make sure we go into those custom game options. So let's start there. You get a warning message about some of those options will not be, can't change them later. We're going to turn on, let's see, we want to have no power because we're not going to build power. We're not going to have any cost, no build costs. We're going to have flight mode so we don't have to worry about flying around or getting the hover pack. You could turn off enemies if you wanted to. I don't think that's necessary. We'll skip the onboarding. We'll actually unlock all tiers. We'll set that game phase. You can unlock all the research if you want to. We're not going to use any of those advanced features because we want to build blueprints that we could use right from the beginning or as soon as we have the blueprint designer. And then, like I said, you could turn off creatures. I like to leave them on just to have something to go after. So once we have that set up, we need to pick our starting area. Any of these technically would work, but it is key. So in this instance, I tend to choose the desert biome. Why? It's open, it's flat, provides plenty of space for testing large-scale layouts without terrain getting in the way. You don't need to clear off a lot of land. It's great for experimenting with factory designs, refining blueprints, getting to those efficient logistics. So the best planner, in my opinion, is actually the game. There are a number of other ones out there, but this one is just great. Some of the resources are not as available, but we don't have to worry about that too much since we're only using those really to test to make sure belts are running. All right, so we'll select that. Name it something like creative build or creative planner maybe. And then let's jump into the game. All right, so we're in the game. You can see a lot of flat terrain, some hills, no big deal. There are some resources around. If you double tap the space key, you can now fly. So we can move around, kind of look for the space that we want to build in. We have no power, no building costs, so we can jump straight to throwing down a blueprint designer if we'd like to.
Once you have built, it will blue.
This will allow us to build our blueprints for free, get an idea of what we want to do factory-wise, and ultimately we could share those blueprints with our other saved games. I'll make sure to show you how to do that at the end of this video. And then, of course, you can test out those builds to get an idea of how much space you're going to consume, so we can lay down large grids. Make sure we get it with the world grid. Turn on Zoop. And just lay down big areas for us to quickly get an idea of how much space the build's going to take in our actual gameplay. So as we're looking for an area to build, or what the terrain might be, or what's going to be, what's going to fit, all of those options become available to us here for free to test out. Again, get that factory efficiency. So you get satisfactory tools, things like that, to understand what you need and what you have to build out. This is a great way to actually start to get that visual view to see if a stackable plan or a flat plan is going to work best. As you all know, I'm a big fan of using those stackable blueprints. So let's take a look at what it takes to get your blueprints over to this new instance. So I have a creative instance. So we'll hop over there and you can see what some of the things I've built look like. And then I'll show you how to actually bring them over into your game, or in this case, we'll bring them over into this creative instance so that you can see them load up in our blueprint designer. So you can see here, we have no blueprints. So now let's exit out. Let's save our game. As creative. Oops. Creative planner. now we'll load my creative instance just to give you an idea of what you could do in here and laying out different pieces. So again, different factory ideas. You can see I have some stackable ideas with walls. This was looking at some early smelters. As you guys know, I've adjusted some of these designs to handle more pieces. This is a potential factory outside layout. So as I was getting more and more, what the inside and how I'm going to stack things looks like, I wanted to start thinking about what the outside shell might look like. And certainly I like the idea of having sort of a basement underneath where I can run belts between machines. Makes things a lot cleaner, I think. So if you have the space for it, it's something to consider as you're laying out these ideas. If you want to put some windows to make things visible, got some of those stackable blueprints again over here. And this was one of the things you may want to do is after you build something, especially if you've got splitters and mergers, sometimes as you've built things, you may have removed something and put it back, and those belts really are not connected. So this is a good way to make sure all your belts, splitters, mergers are working, so you can put it on something, have it built it, just dump it into the awesome sink. This is starting to put together a factory, right? So putting some of those stackable blueprints inside, see, do I need to leave room on the edges for those lifts, and how I might want to adjust the roof, especially as I have to come up a little higher with a particular blueprint. So all of these are just different ideas that you can experiment with. Over here, I was looking at space, right? So with our stackable blueprints, are we really saving any space versus just building on the ground? And with the four ones, you could argue maybe not, right? Because you're kind of taking up a 1x4 space, and it takes up a 1x4 space. It just goes up. But as you start to put in all of the other pieces you likely need, splitters, mergers, running belts to get stuff, it's a little more space efficient, not huge. Now, as we go to 8, right, especially when we remove some of those lifts between and get it right up next to each other, now we're really starting to get a bit more space efficient, and certainly giving ourselves, sort of a whole lot of room up where we may have finite space available to us on the ground. So again, just places to test, try things out, get a good feel for what your factory might look like before you spend time in your play. Now, some of it's fun over there too, right? If you have the resources and you're far enough along, building there is just fine. No reason to hop over here and do it. I find this a little bit easier, especially before you get the hover pack, because you can fly around. It's easier to build. Some of these stackable ones, building them, it's not impossible, but it could be a little tougher. You'll want to build some things around your blueprint designer and then build these. Of course, once you have the hover pack, no big deal to just sort of fly. All right, so that kind of covers what you might do in your creative instance, and some ideas. Now let's see, how would we get these blueprints, if we decide we want to use them, over to our actual save. Okay, so this is in my saved games area. We can see I have blueprints, I have creative, Repton plays, that's my actual playthrough. This is my creative playthrough, and these are all of the blueprints I have available. So if I was just copying them to my playthrough, I would grab those blueprints and just paste them in here. Now you do lose any organization if you've created directories and structure, like I have in uh, in in my creative area, and ultimately I do put them in the save. So if we hop down here and look at blueprints, so you can see I've created this stack area, and then I have, for production and for the enclosures, just to help keep organized. And I maintain that in my playthrough as well, but when you copy them over, you'll lose that. They'll all be in this undefined area, and you'll have to move them again. So let's hop back into the new save we just created. And let's create a blueprint so we get the directory structure. All right, so we'll just drop a power pole on there. Simple enough. Power pole. Save that. So that'll cause my directories to be created. We'll save our game. And now as we look back here, we now have that creative planner. So if I hop into creative and I grab all of these, you don't technically need the config files. I tend to grab them all just for simplicity, and then come into creative planner, paste them all in there. Now we'll load our game again. And when we look at our blueprints, we now have all of them. Like I said, you do lose all that structure. So if you want some groupings to keep things organized, you'll have to recreate that and then and then put them back in that order. So let's say we load that one up, then we can click on set directory, add a category, and let's say we're going to call this stack. And then in stack, I want a subcategory, and I want to call that production. Now over here, I can drag these. So you drag it on there. You can't just let go here because it won't do anything. You gotta drop it on the label, and now it'll move it. All right, apply changes. So now I've moved that, and I can continue to move them over to get back to my organized state. So yeah, thanks for joining me in setting up this creative instance for planning, blueprints, and getting your factory layout the way you want it. With this new world, you could experiment, optimize, and perfect your factory designs without worrying about resource constraints. Next time, we'll put these tools to work in a real factory project. Until then, stay curious and keep exploring.